Hi guys, it's April and the middle of the month is here, so I am gonna have a mid-month wrap-up. It's not gonna be a very big mid-month wrap-up because it's just not. And the cat is going to help today because she is feeling very, very clingy. I'm okay with that. I love you too, cat. So it is the middle and I have read a total of 4 books in the last 2 weeks. I'm slowly falling behind. It's a thing, but with the read-a-thon coming up next week, hopefully that will change a little bit. Maybe. Tiny bit. I don't know. But that is neither here nor there. I just want to show you my awesome leggings today. Get really excited when I found them at Target. I don't know why I decided to show you those, but that is now part of my mid-month wrap-up. Leggings. And of course the air goes on. Yes, it does. Hold on a second. Sorry about that. The air is now off, so maybe you can actually hear what I'm saying. Apologies, forgot to turn it off before I started. I'm a little all over the place. But now I will get on to the books that I've read in the last 2 weeks. And to start out that book is The Black Tattoo by Sam Ethanhoven. Sorry, I am so out of breath right now. Woo! The Black Tattoo is the story of Ethan and Charlie who find themselves wrapped up into the secret society that is trying to fight the Scourge, which, of course, is part of hell. Eventually they find themselves down in hell, fighting the Scourge, trying to save the world, and all of that wonderful nonsense. Now this book feels a mix between middle grade and young adult. It's kind of in that tween era, and I enjoyed it for what it was. However, there was a lot of times where I was sitting and I was reading this book and I just felt like there was a lot of Hitchhiker's Guide influences, and it wasn't a bad thing, but at the same time I wanted it to be its own entity. I could tell where things were going, and it was trying to have a little bit of that sarcastic humor in it, but it fell a little short at points, in my opinion. And so in my mind, I couldn't stop comparing it to The Hitchhiker's Guide. It was a thing. It just kept on happening. I liked it, but it's probably not something that I'm going to pick up and read again. And then I picked up Soundless by Rochelle Mead. This is the story of Fee, I think that's how you say her name, who is a young girl in a village of people who can no longer hear. And on top of that, people are starting to lose their sight. When one day she actually starts to hear, she's trying to figure out what is going on, what these new experiences are, and trying to fit things together when she decides with a friend of hers to try and leave the village. This whole thing had a very Giver-esque type feel, probably because of the sense issue where she can hear and other people can't, where you get feelings and colors in the Giver, and that was okay. I think part of my problem is the way that this story wrapped up. Up until that point, there was a lot of figuring out what was actually going on and how they could help the village and things like that, and the fact that we had to bring in this mystical element to actually wrap everything up drove me a little crazy. Up until that point, there wasn't a lot of the mystical or the magical, and suddenly in the last little chunk of the story we had to bring it up because we couldn't figure out any other way to end the story. I don't know how I feel about that. And then there was points where I was trying to figure out why would they first lose their hearing and then lose their sight. There was some science stuff going on in my head I was trying to figure out. So there was a lot of things in the story that I just started nitpicking apart instead of just sitting and enjoying the story, and that hindered me a little bit while reading this book. So I was in the mid-range of, I don't know, still on the fence about it. I then picked up Always Hungry by David Ludwig. This is a nonfiction book about why we as a society are gaining weight and why we are always hungry and always eating and what different elements come into play with our diets. I found it interesting. There's a lot of stuff that I've been hearing a lot in the past, and the way it was presented was nice. Now, I want to look into some of the science to see if the science that is backing it up is actually legitimate. That is what I like to do with some of these kind of stories, because there is a lot of things about diet and what we're eating and how it affects us, and there's just a lot of noise in that research area, so I like to make sure that what I am hearing is actually what the studies are saying, because sometimes things can get a little messed up. But overall, it made sense to me for what I've heard so far, and I did like hearing it. I didn't necessarily read the dietary part. It was just the first section of the book with the studies that they were doing and things like that I read and I wanted to start learning more about. And then I picked up Darkest Journey by Heather Graham because I just needed something light and fluffy. I just did. Plus, I really like the Crew Hunter series. I don't read any of them in order. I believe this is like book 20 and I've maybe read 5 or 6 in this whole series altogether. I just pick them up as I find them. It works. You don't necessarily have to read them in order. Sometimes you get information from the earlier books in the later books, but overall it doesn't really hinder my reading in any way, shape, or fashion. Of course, this is a story about murder, mystery, and ghost. Love it. That is me in a nutshell, all together, as you guys all know. And this is the story of Charlie and Ethan. Charlie is an actress who stumbles across a body. Ethan is an FBI agent who has the ability to communicate with ghosts. And together they decide to figure out who is killing these reenactors. Deaths so far to this point have been actors in the Civil War reenactment down in Louisiana. So all kinds of shenanigans ensue. I like some of the history that gets brought up in some of these stories. Plus I like ghosts. It was light, it was fluffy, even though it was a murder mystery thriller kind of book. I just like this series. It's just something in me. I don't need a lot. It's my light fluffy reads. It's one of those books that I can read in like a day and not overthink it, which is why I enjoy them. So those are the books that I have read so far this month. Tell me down below what your favorite book so far has been, and if you are going to be participating in I Sat Rat. If you don't know what that is, information is down below and probably above my head. And with that, I heart your beautiful faces. Bye.